sometimes we fish for the reason why things didn't work out. We focus so much on getting that answer, not even paying attention to the fact that maybe that answer would put us in more grief, would put us in more of a negative mind frame. What's up, everybody? It's your girl Am, and I'm finally back with another episode. First, I want to thank each and every last one of you who have been rocking with me since I started this podcast. In case you guys didn't know, this podcast actually just made 1 year. So this is actually going to be the first episode since June, I want to say. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been reaching out, asking me what's good with the podcast. I know it's been a minute, but we're back. And for those of you guys who are new, welcome to Am I Grown Yet? If y'all see me looking down, it's because I'm on my phone. It's where I wrote my notes. So before, when I was doing the podcast, I was doing uploads every Thursday around 7 p.m. But I think what I'm gonna start doing is one episode, so every other Thursday basically. At some point I'm gonna just upload some sort of schedule, or I'll just make like an Insta story about it, I don't know. But I think it'll just be easier for my schedule right now. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, when I was doing the episodes like week after week after week, it's not that I wasn't enjoying it, because it was just so time consuming. And y'all know how life goes. Like my real life, things in my real life was just like needed attention. So I think right now it's gonna just be every other Thursday. And it's gonna be the same as before, like with video uploads, audio upload, and things of that sort. But without further ado, let's get into today's topic. So what brought about this topic actually was, as you guys probably know, for those of you who are new, I do a lot of talking about peace and just about pretty much whatever it is to take care of myself, like self-care kind of things, I guess you can say. And one of the things that I recognize that I always would talk about is doing things so that I can have peace. So that could be getting my hair done, getting my nails done, going for a walk, going to the gym, listening to music, whatever. But even deeper, it could be like cutting somebody off for your peace. It could be somebody that you were talking to, somebody that you were dating. It could be your family member. It could be somebody at work. It could be just about anybody. And we always talk about cutting off somebody else for our peace, but we never really talk about it being vice versa, somebody having to cut us off. It doesn't even necessarily have to be because we were the toxic ones, but maybe it just benefits them. It brings more peace for them, for you not to be in their lives. So I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that, because I feel like when we talk about people cutting us off, or us not getting a job position that we applied for, or us not getting approved for, who knows, like a credit card or for a car loan or etc., we always look at it in such a negative light and basically taking it offensive. Like, I feel like the take on it is I feel like that's, I don't know, maybe a little selfish. I think one of the things, I'll speak for myself, one of the things that I had an issue with accepting is that just because somebody cut you off, it doesn't necessarily mean that they did it intentionally to hurt you. I feel like when it's done to us, we automatically see it as like, well, damn, like they fake, or they being shady or whatever. But in all realness, it could have nothing to do with you per se. It could really just be the fact that they are in a different season of their life. They're trying to find peace, and maybe you were the part that wasn't bringing them peace. Here's another thing. Here's a little sidebar. I like to acknowledge that in life that there are seasons for everything. So obviously there's a season for joy, there's a season for pain, there's a season for happiness. When we talk about relationships, there's a season for you to be in someone's lives. And even down to that, like there's no set amount of time that you're guaranteed to stay into someone's life. And you're technically not even, what way can I say it? You're technically not even entitled to be in somebody's life as long as you deem necessary. Like at the end of the day, it's on the next person. But back to my point. I feel like even on the relationship side of things, I saw this tweet that I actually want to find. I don't know if I'll find it. Now, I took this more like in a general sense, even though she was referring to relationships. But how often are we holding on to things that no longer serve us, but just off the strength of it being something that's comfortable, we're holding on to it? Or because we're scared that, oh, the next thing may not be as good as this. Like, how many times, I'm gonna keep speaking about myself. There's been plenty of times where I was so scared to let go of people out of my life just off the strength of me not knowing how I would survive, or not knowing like, well, dang, if I have something that I want to talk about, like, who else am I going to talk to about this? And there were so many friendships that have dragged in my life with people that I've outgrown. Even with relationships, how many people have you talked to, dated, or been in a relationship with that because of the amount of time that y'all were together, you just stuck it out just because y'all were together for so long and you were so comfortable with them? And no, I'm not throwing shade. If y'all listen to, I forget what episode it was exactly. I think it was which episode was it? I think it was the Let That Hurt Go episode. But if you haven't already listened to that episode, go back to that episode. But in that episode, I was basically talking about one of my past relationships where we both were just holding on to our relationship because of the time that we put in. And that was, after a while, that became the only thing that we really had, was the time in our relationship. And for so long, we were stunting both each other's growth. Like, I honestly feel like, and I can say this now because like I'm more conscious of it now, but we were literally both in the way of each other's next best thing. And I'm not even just talking about relationship wise. I just mean in life. Sometimes when you hold on to a person or to a thing longer than you need to, you end up stunning the growth that you're supposed to have. You end up blocking what could be your next blessing. So again, I ask, like, how many times have you done that? Or if you're even doing that. I still find myself doing that sometimes, like with clothes. Like I'm one of those people where even if I haven't worn it, like I have stuff that's in my closet that I bought like months to a year ago that I haven't even worn yet. Why? Because in my mind, at some point, I'm gonna need it. There's perfume that I bought, never worn it before. Like, there's so much stuff that I have that I can guarantee you I would probably never use. But it's just that feeling of, damn, like I'm gonna have to throw it away. And then in my mind, I'm making up all these excuses like, well, I can use this for this, I can use this for that. Like, just unnecessary stuff that I'm holding on to for what? Like, literally for what? And I'm just using that as a practical example because, like, with real life things, like with people, with jobs, like the job that I'm working now, I've been at for a little over 2 years. Before that, I had only worked 2 real jobs. So the job before this, I was there legit about like 5 years and some change. And before I left that job, this is another story that I'm gonna put briefly because I think I talked about this as a matter of fact, I talked about this in my first episode of Am I Grown Yet? So go back and listen to it if you haven't already. But to make a long story short, the job that I was working before I got this job now, I had been there for so long, and don't get me wrong, it was a decent job. But after a certain time, I just kind of knew that the next phase of my life was coming. Like I graduated college, 2019? Yeah, graduated college 2019. And at that point, I was still working full time at my other job. But like, obviously I was planning to move out, so I needed more money. The lifestyle that I had at the time, like before the pandemic hit, I was able to travel a lot more. And I also wasn't in a relationship, so I wasn't going out as much. But yeah, I knew it was time for me to get a better job. And to make a long story short, I was trying to stick it out there just because of the fact that I was so comfortable there. I loved the people that I was working with. I grew such a huge attachment to that place that it became so hard for me to see past working in that place. It became so hard for me to believe, like, oh, well, if I get another job, who's to say that the people that I work with now are going to be like the people that I work with now? And it became like such a scary thing for me. Like, I would still apply for other jobs, but I was just, in the back of my mind at that time, I was just like, I don't know. I think I was more nervous more than anything. Like, I knew that I wanted a new job. I knew that I needed more money, but I was nervous and I was just I don't know, I was very comfortable. But I'm bringing that up to say it wasn't until I actually really sat down and I talked to myself and I'm like, okay, is there any other growth opportunities at this job? And no shade to my old job. Anybody who used to work with me knows that whole situation. But I had to ask myself, I'm like, is there any growth opportunities staying here? And the answer was no. It was really a no-brainer. The only thing that was keeping me there were my coworkers. But then I thought about it. I'm like, at the end of the day, we hang out outside of work anyway. So if it really was that, like, forget the job. Like, I can still hang out with them. We could still call. I could call them. I could text them. It's really not that big of a deal. So, like, after all of that, I was able to, like, of course I got the job. But after all of that, I was really able to, like, finally move on. And I know that right now I'm just talking about, like, a job. For you, you can fill it in for whatever that thing you're holding on to is. But it wasn't until I had to actually tell myself, like, I'm allowing my fear to block me from what could be next. And let me tell you, like, future me, like me being here 2 years later, like, I don't regret making that decision, leaving that job. Like, I don't. But I'm not going to let this episode be that long. Basically, the point of what I'm saying to you guys today is for anyone who may be struggling with rejection from a job that you applied for that you didn't get, or somebody that you really liked and maybe they haven't been hitting you up the way that you want them to hit you up. They haven't asked you out on a proper date yet. Maybe it's just a blessing in disguise. Like, for all you know, the next person could be better. Like, you sitting here hung up on a girl that's not texting you back or a dude that's not texting you back. And for all you know, like, the man of your dreams or the girl of your dreams could be an event away or a DM away. I don't know how people are dating these days, but, like, for all you know, and even with the job, like, for all you know, the job that you thought that you wanted that rejected you, for all you know, the next job that's waiting for you is even better than the one that you're working at. One thing that I want to close out with is something that I like to live by, and that's what's meant for you will always be for you. Regardless of what the next person has to say about what moves you're trying to make, like, regardless if it's family, sometimes it be family too. Sometimes it be your loved one. Sometimes it be your coworker. Sometimes it be the people closest to you that's talking in your ear, telling you that your vision and your goals are too high, your expectations are too high. But what's meant for you will always be for you. And I know it's a lot easier said than done, because sometimes, like I said, everything that I'm talking about in this podcast is not something that I've mastered. It's something I'm literally still going through. But one thing that I do know for sure is that what's meant for you will always be for you. So that person that's not texting you back, or that relationship that you thought was supposed to be a relationship, and your husband and your wife, like, don't even stress it, because at the end of the day, for all you know, you blocking your blessings, staying hung up on this person or this job or whatever, when the next thing could be better. So, oh yeah, and there was one more thing that I wanted to say. I actually just saw it at the bottom of my notes. So I was reading a scripture, and I'll just paraphrase it. It was from the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 16 through 18, and I'll sum it up. And it's basically saying, the greater your wisdom, the greater your grief. And all of that basically is saying, I can actually compare it to something that we hear often, and that's the less you know, the better. Sometimes we fish for the reason why things didn't work out, and that could be with someone that we really liked, that could be with a job opportunity, that can be with a deal we were trying to close, that can be with an apartment we were trying to get, a car we were trying to get. It could be with anything, even with a relationship with your family member that you may have been trying to mend back. Sometimes we always fish for why it happened, and we focus so much on getting that answer, not even paying attention to the fact that maybe that answer would put us in more grief, would put us in more of a negative mind frame. Sometimes not having the answer to why is actually beneficial. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that that's the easiest way out, to just, when somebody hurts you, just not even think about why they hurt you, or when somebody cuts you off, not even try to consider why they cut you off. But what I am saying is that sometimes you need to just let bygones be bygones, like, in all realness. And I'm pretty sure y'all have had an instance before where you went fishing for something, whether it was you stalking your man's page, stalking your girl's page. You went looking for something, an answer to something, and the answer may have been exactly what you thought it was, but it ended up making you feel even worse. So maybe with rejection, since that's what we're talking about today, maybe with rejection, instead of spending so much energy on figuring out the why, accept the situation for what it is and be on to the next thing. Like, I cannot stress that enough. This is something that I'm still working through, but believe me, it's a lot easier to get through things when you just accept it for what it is. But yeah, that's all I had to say to you guys today. I hope I didn't do too much rambling and that at least something of what I said will stick with you. I'm closing out this episode, but I will be back within the next... Stay tuned. That's all I'm gonna say. Stay tuned. And if you aren't already, make sure you're following our Instagram page, which is Am I Grown Yet Pod. The website right now, well, by the time this episode is uploaded, the website would be up. But the website is amigrowyet.me. And all the information about our YouTube channel, any audio episodes, all of that information is on the website. If you guys have any suggestions on topics, feel free to leave me a comment or you can DM me on the podcast Instagram. But for now, I'm signing off and I hope to hear from you guys soon. Deuces.